Is your relationship boring, or is it just healthy? Is there no fire, or do you just not have things to argue about? Are they not that into you, or are they just secure and emotionally stable? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're good, hope you're well. Research has shown that an increased level of anxiety can actually increase your attraction to someone compared to if the anxiety wasn't there. That was a study done, and those are the results. I didn't make them up. And psychologists also say that our childhood, we already know this, our childhood and the experiences we had in our childhood shape the way that we view love and relationship now as adults. And no surprise, we tend to find ourselves attracted to relationships that feel most natural to us. So, again, making sense? I'm sure you're with me. Depending on how we were raised, we might find ourselves drawn to relationships where we have to convince the other person of our worth, or where we have to adopt the caregiver role, or where we might have to find ourselves walking on eggshells to manage our partner's mood. And it doesn't necessarily mean our upbringing was toxic, but we kind of take everything with us into adulthood, the good and the bad. And even if something was small, you'll be surprised how it can affect us in a big scale as we become adults. And of course, there are positive traits that we see growing up, or hopefully, depending on your childhood. And those are also sort of reflected in our adult relationships, but we're just going to talk about one side for now. And then when you adopt the same role that you witnessed growing up as an adult, you understandably feel at home because it feels familiar. And the pull that we have to these sorts of relationships dynamics, ones that mirror the ones we have as children, that pull is very strong. We can find it really difficult to pull away from that. Good, bad, neutral, we find it very difficult to stray from that norm. And so unfortunately, if you have experienced some of these maybe negative things growing up, you might not even have known they're negative, but you find yourself mirroring them in your adult relationships, which again, you might not even realize, but you're in a somewhat unhealthy relationship. If and when you encounter a healthy, balanced relationship, one that doesn't require you to like overfunction or to sacrifice or to walk on eggshells or to change yourself, it might feel boring. It might feel too still, too stable, and our subconscious mind is associating that as boredom. Which brings me back to the original question, like, is your relationship boring or is it just healthy? So that's one explanation, but I have another one. I have a theory. Of course I have a theory. Once upon a time, right, there was this time online where we were all comparing, or people were all comparing, our generation to the older generation. Like, you girls aren't sticking it out as long as your grandmas, they were loyal back then. And then there was another wave where we kind of shunned the idea because we acknowledged the power dynamic and the social dynamic at play. One that often meant it wasn't that grandma didn't want to leave, it's that grandma couldn't leave. Nothing to do with the health of the relationship or the strength of the couple, and that the generation now have a lower tolerance for crap. But I think both of those views are quite simplistic and one-sided, and obviously don't have nuance because every single situation is quite different. However, I do think there is truth in the fact that the older generation did stick things out longer than this current generation. And I'm talking outside of abuse, outside of power dynamics, outside of infidelity. I still think, I have no evidence obviously, but I do believe that the older generation were maybe better at sticking it out, weathering the storm, overcoming adversity, specifically when it comes to relationships and romantic relationships, or even non-romantic relationships. And I get why nowadays we're kind of opposed to that whole sticking it out, weathering the storm, because it's giving struggle love. And rightfully so, we've decided, no, I'm not going to struggle for love, because love in and of itself should not be a struggle. I agree with that. But I do think, I keep going back and forth, I do think we have thrown the baby out with the bathwater. And I think what we're doing is we're mistaking normal, difficult, but normal trials and tribulations with struggle love. When actually, it's not actually struggle love, it's just a normal relationship that does require work, because two human beings are coming together and trying to build a life together. Naturally, that is going to come with trouble and struggle and hardship. That I don't think is the same as plain old struggle love. And of course, I blame the media and social media. That's my theory. That is my theory. So on top of upbringing, because upbringing I think applies to anyone of all generations, of any time, right? Your upbringing is going to affect the way that you maneuver the world as an adult, including your romantic relationships. But now, sprinkle on top of that, the media, social media, and here's my theory. Firstly, it presents a very skewed view of anything. That is social media in and of itself. We only really mostly see the good stuff. We see the highlight reel because that is literally what social media is pretty much. You post your highlights. And because very few couples air their dirty laundry online, like why would they? Like we'll never see the little fights or the big obstacles that these couples face on a day-to-day, or they might be going through something for a whole year. We won't see it. And so we do, I think, as strong as you are and as, you know, as tight as you've got your brain, your whatever screwed on, we will subconsciously compare. And secondly, I just think the nature of social media has made us impatient. Like they call us the microwave generation. I think it has. It's made us impatient. We want amazing love now. Yesterday, in fact. We do not even want to entertain the idea of just temporary struggle. And I'm not talking about struggle because he's a waste man and you're struggling, or struggle because you're settling, or because you're having to lend him $2,000. I'm talking small struggle just because, like I said before, you're two flawed human beings coming together, that kind of struggle. And I think because we are very much about the now, we also struggle to see things improving in the future. And I'm talking to myself, like if something is happening right now, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be like this for the rest of my life. When, you know, with a bit of work, it might get better. So now if we combine the potential dysfunction that we might have experienced growing up, mixed with the fun, the razzle dazzle that we see online, and now I think you have the perfect recipe for what you might think is an exciting relationship. Except, what if that excitement is just noise? And what if the boredom that you're experiencing is actually peace? Healthy, loving, secure, toxic-free peace. And then when we feel that, when we experience that peace that we mistake for boredom, we can sometimes then mistake that for settling. And when we feel like we've settled, we can then make the decision to actually leave the relationship because, you know, it doesn't serve you anymore. Have we heard that before? And also, this is not the point of the video. Maybe I'll do a separate video on this. Let me know if you want me to talk about this in another video. But let me just explain what I personally view as settling, because I know everybody has a different opinion on that, and what I don't think settling is. For me, settling is having high yet reasonable standards, but then you lower them for someone. For example, I want a God-fearing man, but now that's not a deal breaker anymore. Or I require a certain love language to feel affirmed, and now I'm settling for someone who will not, cannot, shan't not even attempt to speak my love language. For me, I think settling is settling down with someone who you have little or no romantic feelings to just because they're a good person. There are good people everywhere. Okay? I don't want to be with you. And I think settling is choosing to be with someone who has proven time and time again that they do not and they will not respect you or show adequate love. I'm talking about a serial cheater, somebody who doesn't rate you and you've got to beg for their love. Being with any of those groups of people, I think that's settling. What I don't think is settling is being with someone who doesn't necessarily meet all of your physical or material requirements. Like, they don't have a beard, they don't have a big bum, they make 20k less than your 100k requirement. Or settling down with someone whose character is solid, but their personality isn't exactly what you wanted. So I don't know, you might have things like, oh, they're not saucy, or they're not as funny as I would have liked, or they're not as serious, or they're not as outgoing. The character's there, but there's little quirks about their personality that you're like, you know, that's when I feel like foundation is the core. And obviously compatibility is important, but, oh, I don't know, he's not the swaggiest, sauciest guy. I can change that. I can change that. So just wanted to clarify that. But back to the point about leaving relationships. Absolutely leave if you feel like you want to, or you have to, you need to leave. I'm not telling you, listen, I'm just here to start a discussion. Leave if you must. But if you feel like you have a good thing, but you want to leave because you're bored or because the spark is no longer there, I just have a question, just some questions. I'd like to use an analogy. Let's compare it to eating healthy food. I like sugar. I like processed foods. I like fried food. They taste delicious. But when I eat those in excess, I end up feeling crap. Any sane person would tell me, Adella, stop eating the crap food and eat some good, nourishing, whole food. Even though I don't actually want to. And they'd say that because they know it's good for me, and because we know now that it is actually possible to change your appetite for certain foods. I can go from always craving ultra processed foods to actually craving whole, good, nourishing food because of how it makes me feel. Same goes for exercise. I much prefer to sit down than to stand up. I don't love working out, okay? I'm not one of those people. But I feel the negative effect of not moving my body versus the positive effect of exercise. Again, any sane person would advise me, Adella, you should exercise more, even though I don't want to, even though I don't like it. Because again, we know that over time, I can actually grow to love it. The endorphins are there. I will start to crave those endorphins. I will start to crave the way my body feels. I will get stronger, and therefore I will want to do it more. But interestingly, for some reason, we don't tend to use the same logic when it comes to romantic love. And I get it. I get why we don't, but because we don't want to feel like we're forcing love. We don't want to feel like, this is by force. We want it to feel natural and, But the thing is, right, I do think that analogy applies. And I think just like healthy eating and exercise, I don't think the solution is to force yourself. The solution is not to force yourself to be with someone that you don't want to be with. Force yourself to be with someone who you find in a relationship that you find boring. Because back to the analogy, studies have shown that if you do something from a place of force, eat healthy, restrictive eating, forcing ourselves to work out all the time, doing exercises we hate, the studies show that you will fall back into old habits. You won't. It's not a long-term solution. But same way we know that the sustainable solution is maybe to, find whole foods that you like. Find exercises that you like, be a bit more disciplined, and over time you'll build the habit. Maybe change your mindset to focus on how this is making you feel rather than, the number on the scale or how small your waist is. And then over time you will maintain that habit because you want to, not because you have to. I honestly believe the same can apply to relationships. So whilst I don't think settling because you feel like it's the right thing to do or because someone's telling you it's the right thing to do is the long-term strategy, I do think that it's possible to reframe your mindset so that eventually you actually genuinely desire what is good for you. And so if there were once things that sat in your settling box that, but actually maybe after some internal work you realize were good for you, they might move from that no box to the yes box. I hope that makes sense. I'm not telling anyone to settle. God forbid, I would never settle. But what I am saying is I do think that we should all reevaluate our desires. Not even outside of romantic relationships. We should reassess our desires, see if those desires match up with what we truly want and what we truly believe to be good and healthy for us, and try through whatever means to fit what we deem good and healthy for us into our desires, right? Because I just don't think it's a good strategy to force yourself to want what you don't really want. I think a better strategy is to try to reframe what's good for you as what you want. It sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but I'm not saying the same thing. I hope you're catching the the difference between those two things. That's all I have to say. That one I feel like has to be worded very correctly, and so I hope I did that. I hope I did it justice, but surely you know what I mean. But anyways, as always, let me know what you think about what I said in the comments down below, and yes, check out my other videos, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.